I'll go to the right view, and I will, I guess I could go into my shaded mode here, my X-ray mode, and then my wireframe on shaded. And that's going to help me to just see what's going on. So to create my leg, I'm going to want to place these joints where the rotation would naturally occur. And so here it's in the middle of the hip, and then the knee. And then, actually, you know what I can do? There is a constraint here. Somewhere in here, and this is not something that I use, so I'm not that familiar with it, so I'm not going to worry about it. But there is a function, maybe one of you guys knows it, where I will always draw in the middle of the geometry. You guys know about that? Here? Uh, oh, snap to projected center. Okay, that's cool. So if I draw this with the snap to projected center, see what happens. I'm not sure if that's going to really work for me because, yeah, that's not doing anything. I'm not going to use it because I don't normally. It's something new, and I'm kind of old school. So if you are, see, this is very difficult because from this view, everything kind of overlaps, and so I'm not sure how that would, what the nuance would be of, trying to get into the center of a particular piece of geometry. So I'm not going to worry about that. So I'll start with the hip, and then I'll go to the knee, and then I'll go to the ankle. And then we talked about this before, where I like to put a heel in, okay? And that's for clustering. It's not critical, and a lot of people don't do it because you can always paint the weights. But again, I'm kind of old school, so I still do that. So I'll click the heel, and then shift and get the ball of the foot, and then hold the shift and get the toe. So the shift key just makes sure that, just ensures that my joints are, the next joint is either perfectly horizontal or perfectly vertical. All right, so as I'm going down this, hierarchy, you can see that I'm sort of building in some bend in there, and that's, I want to be doing that. But then there are some cases where I want this to be perfectly, lined up. So, okay. So there's another way that you can move a joint. Like this knee is maybe a little bit too far forward. The bone is coming out the shin, which, it doesn't have to cause problems, but it could. So I'm going to hit this joint here, and if I move it, it's going to move everything below it, right? And I'd have to fix that. If I rotate this, that's going to rotate everything below it, and I'll have to go back and fix. So what I'll do is do this, and then I'm going to hit the insert key, which is what we normally use for changing a pivot point, okay? And then I'll just pull this back to where it belongs, okay? And that just moves that joint, and then the top and the bottom ones will adjust to accommodate that. But insert works like move. It throws the orientation off of the other joints. So I'm going to pick this joint again and then go back to my skeleton and orient the joints. And by the way, when I create these joints, you don't have to create them with the x-axis pointing down the bone and the z-axis being the rotation. You can set that up however you want. Okay? So by default, set up primary axis x. That's why I use the default. Work. Do this differently. Your orientation, you have to change that, I think. Yeah. Go ahead. Um, yeah, is there a way to freeze the axis orientation on a joint so that you don't have this problem? Is that what you're
Like we're
yeah.
some rain fish.
Well, there probably is, but I mean, what's happened? So you want to freeze it in relation to where it was.
Right.
Yeah. So no, there's not. I mean, you can rotate the joint and that won't affect it. Scale the joint and that won't affect it. But if you do it or but this is only for the building process, right? This is only for the rigging process and making sure that everything's clean when you do your rig. Once the rig is in place, you're only going to ever rotate your joints. Well, you might scale them, but you're not going to be moving. So, okay, so that's pretty clean right there, and I'm going to go back to the front view, and I do have to get this correct here because it's not oriented correctly, to her leg. So I'll just select the top there and move it, and I'm going to want to get it into her leg like that. So and then I'll just reorient that. Okay. So now that's right in her leg, and that will work for her. Now, you can mirror this joint, so you don't have to redo this all. So in my skeleton here, I can just go in and mirror the joint, okay? And I want it. There's a plane that's defined by two vectors, right? So the one that I want is YZ, because my y-axis this. So I'll just go ahead and mirror that, and there's that. Okay. So moving forward, then I'll go back into the right view here, and I want to get the spine. And so the question is, how many joints do you put in the spine? Depends on what kind of movement you want. All right. Jumping ahead, just very briefly. When you I think this is the default picture that comes with this program because it's on mine too. So when you have a joint hierarchy, everything is parented, right? So you have your top joint here, and then it comes down like this, and that's the child, and then that's the grandchild, okay, and so forth, all right? And what happens is if you create a piece of geometry here, and you can parent that, so here's my piece of geometry here, and you can go ahead and parent that to that top node, and then that geometry as a sphere is going to rotate with that top node, okay, because it's just grouped. All right, so you could create another one here, and this one would be parented to this one, okay, and so forth. So you can parent, and that's going to rotate hard surfaces with the joints, okay. So if I were going to build like armor or something like that, I can parent the pieces of armor. They don't have to bend, they don't have to deform, they don't have to do anything like that. Okay? On the other hand, what we're going to do is binding. which basically, let's just put a little cylinder here. And that cylinder is going to have, vertices, okay? And the vertices are on these edges. So in the binding process, what happens is Maya looks for vertices, and it collects them and makes something called a cluster out of them. And then it takes that cluster and it parents it to the next highest joint. So this cluster would go there, but this cluster would go there. So if I bend this joint right here, this cluster will bend with it, this one will not, and that means that my cylinder is going to bend. Okay? So how many joints do I put in the spine? It depends on how many clusters I want and how much I want that spine to. Do I want like a hard elbow, or do I want this sort of gradual bend? And that's going to determine. So some people will say you put more joints in the lower spine and fewer in the thoracic spine, because up here you have a rib cage and you don't bend as much. But I don't find that makes that much of a difference. So the one thing that I am going to do is put one joint here directly above the hips, and then one more joint directly above that. Okay, that's my start. Okay, and I'll explain that in a minute. But then I'll just go through and I'm going to follow the curvature of the spine, and I'm going to put in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to just come up here. I'll put a couple in the neck. I want to spread that around, okay? And then I'm going to just go right up to the top of the head there, okay? Now, depending on what you want to do with your face, you can, facial animation separately, forward. One school of thought is combination, so that you would put blend shapes, morphing, right? Or from one shape to the other, go from a tile to whatever. That's all, kind of animation. Combination of this, you can control the open and close of the jaw, then apply the blend shape. You can rotate the jaw like this. A combination of this. So it depends on, what you're planning on doing with this, and it's just going to take a little bit of experience. You'll try it out. It's going to work for you. It's not going to work for you, or whatever. But that's why I put in this small joint right here, and I actually put it in the wrong place. So I'm going to take, oh look, I separated this by mistake. Oh no, I didn't. That's fine. So I'll take that joint there, this joint here, and I'm going to pull it up a little bit because I want to line that up with the jaw. So I didn't really change the orientation that much. I was pretty careful. I should fix it, but I'm going to go ahead and select this joint, which is going to identify it, and then I'll just draw a small joint here, and then I'll go right down to the chin. Right. So the reason that I use that small joint is because if I look at the hierarchy, where am I here? Oh, those are my legs. Okay. So looking here, this is all my hierarchy. And if I come in and pick this, which is the parent of that like double descent right there, and I try to rotate that, it's going to rotate both. So I can't really rotate the head or the jaw independent of the head. But with that tiny little joint there, I can. I can take this and rotate it, and there's a joint in between, right? So that's going to allow me to move the jaw. Okay, and that's why I made that tiny joint here at the base of the spine, because one of these joints, this joint that I'm looking at right there, that's going to be the main root joint of everything. And if I try to rotate that root joint, I'm going to rotate the entire body, arms, legs, torso, everything. But if I go from that tiny joint, then I can bend at the waist, and that's what I want to do. Okay, so let's finish the legs here. Two schools of thought on this. One is, you can pick the top of the leg hierarchy. Let me just open up the hypergraph window so you guys can see. So there's that leg, and then I can shift and select the base of the spine. You can see that they're both highlighted there. And then I can hit the P key, which stands for parent. So you always pick the child first, then the parent, and that's going to draw a joint right there. Okay? And you can see how it descends there, so that now is my main root node. Okay? So I can do the same thing over here and hit the P key. Okay. So now, if I take this and I rotate right from the root, it's going to rotate the whole skeleton. But if I go to this next joint right here, that's going to enable me to bend at the waist. Okay. Let me just check this spine here. So I'll select the hierarchy, and I just want to see where my joint orientations are. Yeah, see? Now, I don't know why I wasn't able to break it before, but it's definitely broken now, right? The x-axes are correct, are sort of correct, oriented the right way. Some of my y's. Look at this in the front view, you can see that the z-axes are also doing that, which means that, if I try to bend at the waist and I pick three joints to spread that bend out, two of those joints are going to go forward and the other one's going to go backward. So I need to fix those. So that's where this script comes in really handy. It doesn't matter what your orientation is as long as they're the same. Yes? Could be, yeah. That seems to be, yeah, you know what, you're right, because y is identified as the up axis, right? So it doesn't know. So what it does is it defaults to the curvature. When the curvature of the spine is going this way, y-axis go this way. As soon as I go other way, the y-axis come out that way. So I think I should be able to do this by selecting right there and rotate minus R 180, 0. Yeah, it only does one at a time. I don't know why it only does one at a time. Let's see if I can do two. Rotate minus R 180, 0, and that takes care of those. And then let's get come on, where am I here? There I am. So I'm going to skip it. You shouldn't, but I am. So the next thing that we want to do is the arm. Okay, so this might be a good place for this constraint to the center because I'm not overlapping anything. Okay, so the arm is going to, you want to start the arm with a collarbone. Okay, so and the reason is that when I rotate my shoulder actually translates as I rotate it. If I like hold my finger here to the point where it starts out, if I go like this, you can see that my shoulder has lifted up away from my finger. And that's because when I rotate my shoulder, I'm also rotating from the collarbone as well. All right. So you want to mimic that in your rig because otherwise everything is going to just get it works better this way. So so I'm going to go back to the front view. And for the arm, I'll create a collarbone and then just go right down the arm. So I've got this constraint on, and I'm going to start somewhere down here, and then I'll go to the shoulder, and then the elbow. Okay, then the next joint I put in is going to be the middle of the forearm. And then I'm going to hit the wrist. Okay? And I guess I'll just put one in for the center of the hand. Good question. Good question. In case you fall off the swing set and break your arm, you want to be able to animate that. No, just kidding. Because when you rotate your hand like this, okay, that doesn't happen at the wrist, right? If you hold your arm rigid and you try to rotate, you really don't have much motion there at all. Okay, this rotation takes place in the forearm, right? And you can see that it twists, and it's got this really nice sort of twist from wrist to elbow. Okay. Yeah. So I put this joint in here to get that twist, and then later, after I bound this, then I can adjust the weights, called painting weights. I can adjust the influence on this joint. I rotate this joint, it's going to give me a nice little spread across there. Sense? Right. Yep. Now, what I just did here with the hand, that's temporary. That's not, I just threw that in there for now. Okay. So then here I want to parent this collarbone to my spine. So I could go above or I could go below, and it's not that important. So I'll select that, and I'm going to shift select this one here, and then I'll hit the P key, and now my arm is there. So I can rotate this joint here. That's my shoulder, and then I can select both of these, and and rotate them, and that's going to lift and rotate at the same time. That's going to give me a much more natural movement. Okay. All right. So I can let me just look at the rotation axes here. Okay. It looks good. All my y-axes are pointing up. Everything's fine. Okay. My x-axes are pointing down the descendant bone. So I'm going to just select this, and you see where I'm selecting it. I'm not selecting it where it's parented. I'm selecting it, where I started drawing the arm, and I'll go ahead and mirror this, and it mirrors the whole thing over there. But this is the other thing that you have to worry about, because when I mirror this, it does not mirror orientation of the joints. Sort of does. Okay. So this one is pretty easy. It's the same as we were doing before. All I have to do is select this, and I'll just select it up here just to be safe. And I'm just going to go to my skeleton and then Orient Joint, and that fixes everything. Now it's going down the right. So you have to develop a habit, as you draw these joints and then you edit them and you put them in the place where they belong. Then you need to make sure that the orientations are correct. Okay, so for now, this bind is pretty close to being complete. There's going to be some more stuff that I want to do to it, but it's complete enough for me to test it. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is save this. Save scene as, and I'm going to call this base mesh skeleton. No bind. Okay. And then I'm going to save it again. And I'm going to call this test bind. Okay. The reason I do it that way is that, once I've saved it as the no bind, and then I save again as the bind, I won't overwrite my no bind. If I hit like the Control S to save incrementally, I still have that pure, unadulterated model that I can stay with. Okay. Okay, so I froze the transforms because I want everything to be zeroed out. Okay. So binding, the one thing that you always have to remember about binding is it's not just like one step. Binding is a process. Bind it, you're going to play with it, you're going to adjust it, and then you're going to need to fix something, so you're going to unbind it. That may be that you need to put another joint in. May be that you need to put some more edge loops in. Okay? It may need that you have to completely alter your geometry. Okay, so when Maya goes through this binding process, it looks at these joints and associates those clusters with the nearest joint. So if you change the joint or you change the cluster, that's going to throw that off. So you have to unbind, make your changes. That's going to take it. It's under the skin menu here, and there's a couple ways that you can bind. Right here, this fourth line item there, go to bind pose. Maya remembers the orientation and rotation of every joint in the hierarchy at the moment when you bound it. So that makes unbinding very easy. There are a few things we're going to do later on that's going to make it totally ruin that for you, but the way that it's set up initially is if you want to make any changes, you just go to the bind pose and then you unbind. Okay. I just wanted to point that out, that's there. So now I can bind this skin, and the simplest way to do this is to just use this bind skin, and you have a few options here. Your bind method is most important one that you're going to want to look at. So you have closest distance, closest in hierarchy, heat map, or geodesic voxel. So the geodesic voxel is probably your best bet. So the way that you want to remember this is you just leave everything as defaults, but you pick the last bind method. Okay. Now the rest of this I'm not going to get into right now because you really have to understand the weight distribution, and you have to have a little bit of experience with painting weights so you can see what it does. Once you've seen what it does, then you can kind of circle back and say, well, if I set it this way, then I don't have to do that. Okay, so leave everything at defaults, and except for the geodesic voxel. So the way that you do this is you pick the geometry, and then you pick the joint, or it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what order you pick them. And then you just go ahead and say bind skin. Now, once you've done this, things get kind of color-coded here. So if I look, I think I can look at my vertices there, and the vertices are color-coded, and it shows what's connected to what joint. Okay, so you really get an idea of how this thing got bound. Right? So I can tell you that right off the bat, there are things that are going to work well and things that are going to work not so well. So, by the way, in my shading menu here, I have a little selection. This is X-ray joints, and that means that even if my geometry skin is opaque, I can still see the joints through it. Very helpful. Okay. So let's turn off this grid and take a look. So let's rotate this knee. That works pretty nicely. Look how, automatically it just distributes this weight really nicely. There's very little I'm going to have to do to adjust this, to fix it. So we can rotate at the hip. That works pretty well too. Not that great, so I'm going to have to do something in there. It's a little bit indented. So that's going to be a weight painting thing. I really want to get a fold in there. I don't want to get that little arc. So up here at the arm, see, I can rotate this, and you can see that like really gives me this sort of distorted shoulder thing happening. But if I pick this and then shift select this, I've got both of them selected, and if I rotate them, my arm is going to go up, and it's a much more natural movement. Okay? And you see I've got some little too much involvement down here in the latissimus area. Okay? I'm going to address that in a minute. Okay, let's take a look at the spine. So I can rotate here, and that'll bend. That's nice. Okay. If I select two joints, it'll bend nicer. Okay. If I select three joints, that might be nicer still. Okay. And then, so the whole thing is that you're sort of spreading out the distribution, right? So if I rotate on one joint, I'm going to kind of do this, right? But if I rotate on two, I'm going to get a little bit more twist, And if I rotate on three, I'm going to get a really nice contrapposto. So that's going to affect how you select how many joints you're going to put in the spine. It depends on how much, and really the best way to do it is to just put them in there, see how it moves, and then say, well, this looks really good, or, I need another joint in there. Okay? So twisting these, you can get a nice twist like that, right? And you can maybe even bend forward. Okay? So right off the bat, this geodesic voxel binding method, it fixes a lot of sins. or it avoids a lot of stuff. So I want to fix this arm thing, okay? Now, the problem with the arm is that the lats are like stretching out. You know, I've got good shoulder movement in there. Let me just, I'm going to go back to the bind pose. Nice, huh? Yeah, so when I pick these, you know, I think the shoulder is working pretty well, right? I was actually concerned a little bit that I thought this collarbone close to the spine, and I thought I was going to be bad. Good. So there's a couple ways that you can fix that. One is by painting weights. What painting weights does is it will, like for these clusters right here, these clusters are moving based on the rotation of this joint and of this joint and also of this joint. And that's what I mean by when I say weight distribution. Okay? So it might be 10% this one, 60% this one, and 30% this one. I don't know what it is, but you know that. And so when you paint the weights, what you do is you say, well, let's kind of influence a little bit more over here and a little less over here. So I could paint these weights so that I get less influence on the lats when I rotate. Okay, but I'm old school. Painting weights is great, works really well. It's also kind of complex, so I prefer to take the easy way out. So what I'm going to do is unbind. So I'll select. I want to go to the bind pose. I also wanted to demonstrate that you have to go to the bind pose. So I'll go to the bind pose. I'll shift and select this, and I'll say unbind skin. So now I'm disassociated. All of my color coding has gone away. Okay, and now I can fix what's going on with the lats. And so my method for fixing this is by putting ribs in. Okay. So I'll put them in, and then I'll explain why. Okay. So I want to find, you know, one of these vertebrae here, and I'm going to draw my rib just to the right of it, and then I'm going to come out towards the lats there, and then I'll do the same thing below. And I think I only need two, but maybe I'll make a third one just to be safe. Oops. Okay, and then I need to go into the perspective view or the top view or whatever. Well, this works out really well, actually, because I had that geometry constraint turned on, so it drew the ribs in the center there, and since I had the spine in the center, it lines up pretty nicely with the spine. Okay, you may find if you don't have that constraint on, you may have to slide those ribs around just so that they line up better with the spine. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and parent these. So it's the P key, right? Pick the child first, shift select the parent, hit the P key. And then I'm going to go ahead and mirror these. And you have to mirror these one at a time. Because otherwise they'll try to mirror over each other. Okay. Now these are not oriented correctly, so I should. I mean, if I really want to be clean, I want to orient them. But in this case, it doesn't really matter because I'm not really going to do anything with those joints. So what's going to happen then is that with the geodesic voxel binding methodology, lats are going to have more influence with ribs. So as long as if I'm rotating these, where they belong. That's that's why I like to use ribs. That's also why I like to put a heel in. So, just going back to the foot. When you younger days, I would have thought nothing of hopping up on. You rotate your foot. It rotates from the ankle. Okay, my heel is not a joint. Okay, so there's really no need to have this heel here, but I put it in there for the same reason I put ribs, because that way there's less question about what those heel clusters are rotating. Ultimately, what I'll do with these, I'll do it right now, is I will select that joint there, and in the attribute editor, I'm going to turn off the degrees of freedom on that. So my heel now is not a joint at all. So see, it's grayed out. So that won't rotate now. All right, so back to the ribs. Let's see what this does. And I'll go ahead and bind this. Okay, now let's pick this up, rotate this. Much less involvement. I still might have to do a little bit of weight painting. Okay, let me try one thing. You guys remember what this looks like here? Okay, so let's go back to the bind skin and unbind. And I'm going to take this joint here and rotate it up just a little bit. This one too. Okay, and I could zero transform that or freeze the transformations, but I'm not going to ever do anything with that joint, so it doesn't really matter. So let's bind this again. Yeah, so it's much more subtle. So the placement of these things is pretty important because it kind of sends out these little feelers to find these clusters, and it picks the ones that it's closest to that it thinks are right. So if you really give it a chance, it will do very well for you. Okay. The one thing that you really want to do here is name your joints. You don't have to name all of them, but you want to name the important ones. And the reason for that is because when you start painting weights, what you're going to end up with, well, I'll show you. You can pick this thing here, and you can go into paint weights. You get this, okay? And so what you'll do is you'll pick a joint, and it will show you with light and dark how much influence that joint has over the geometry. So by default, you're going to have to do a lot of trial and error trying to find the right joint for what you're trying to do. But if it's called, spine 1, spine 2, spine 3, left shoulder, left elbow, left, you can pick them out really easily. Okay, so so that's what you need to do is make sure that you name these. So and it's a little bit of a pain, but I would call this one. Well, I don't know. Is that the left shoulder or the right? It's her left, the right one on me. So I'm just going to call it shoulder. And I'll show you why in a second. Shoulder, then elbow, and then forearm, and then wrist. Okay, so I'm going to grab this hierarchy right here, modify prefix hierarchy names. Okay, so I've got this selected and go into my modify tool here, and then down here is Anybody see it? Prefix hierarchy names. Okay. So for this entire hierarchy now, I can just say left or left underscore, and then I can just open that up. And now every one of these is prefixed with left. I don't know if that solves anybody's problems or saves any time or whatever, but that's the way that works.